So to be quite honest with you, it's just about being sensible and be a custodian of the members' funds. And if I'm elected and I end up then as eventually as president, I will be pushing to get these things done.
John Lynch is a man of contradictions. He's a traditionalist and an industry veteran, but he understands the need for modernisation. He is both passionate and often outspoken. He's a vocal advocate for the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, but he also believes that the NFDC, and more importantly its members, would benefit from some fundamental changes. I caught up with John as he announced his decision to stand as second vice president of a federation he cares so passionately about.
Well, obviously, growing up, we were, or I was always in my father's yard and on the sites and everything else. So, we were driving machines when we were 10 or 11 or 12 years old, driving the old B100 drops and the Case 1150s and the Cats and grey loading shovels. And so it was actually in my blood. And I went to college to do an ordinary national diploma in building and civil engineering. And while I just finished there, I was due to start with a building company as a junior engineer. My father passed away, and I went into the business at that stage. So that was 1973, and I've been there since. My father started in 1950s, and obviously he was involved with the demolition of the terraced houses, etc., the old slums in Leicester when they regenerated Leicester. In those days, it was a drag line or, face shovel, loading the hardcore and men on the top with flat hats, taking the slates off and reclaiming the timbers and the slates, and no scaffold or Harris fencing or anything. And then obviously they'd put the old timbers then and the one that got woodworm, etc., into the basement and fire the whole lot, and then knock the buildings in and use the hardcore for filling oversights or roads or capping for roads or whatever. So really, I was brought up all the way through my life. And those days, we used to, all the men used to work 6 days a week, and the fitters or the mechanics in the workshops would work 6.5 days a week. And that's really, it's been in my blood since I was a youngster, sort of thing.
Now, it strikes me that the demolition industry in the Midlands is actually enjoying something of a renaissance now. It's got some of the very best demolition companies in the country, and we'll soon be in a position where we've got an NFDC president and an IDE president from the region. What are you hoping that Midlands alliance might bring?
I'm hoping that it'll actually give the Midlands a chance to get away from what's been happening in the past, with London controlling, having the lion's share of the members and chairman, etc. I think the last chairman we had was Danny Doyle in the Midlands Welsh region. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't remember an IDE president from the Midlands and Welsh, but not an NFDC member. We did have some other, I think John Woodward was, etc. So I'm hoping that we'll actually, and the Midlands now, we've got a lot of, and look, Midlands and Welsh, we've got a lot of good contractors. To be honest, you couldn't fault, in my opinion, any of them. There's a lot in the you look at the big ones in Birmingham, with the DSMs and the City Demolition, and you go down to Wales, you've got good contractors there. We've got a good mix in our region, big and small, but they're all, in my opinion, very confident.
And the Midlands is enjoying something of a boom in itself, with the HS2 and Commonwealth Games. It's the perfect time for the demolition focus to move to the Midlands, I guess.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's I know we're in a pandemic, and don't get me wrong, the first 6 months last year were pretty grim. But since that, we have had a renaissance, and there's a lot of development. I think people were panicking they're not to develop, but now there's a lot of development going on, and to be quite honest, there's no shortage of work in from what I can see. Obviously, I think that's different when you talk to the different regions, and I think especially down in London. But up here, it seems to be definitely gaining pace, and also I'd say that I think a lot of people are moving out of London, and they're moving up to here and they're building more flats and apartments and houses, and they're using the train links to get to London. So I think the Midlands is definitely in the middle of a boom, and I think hopefully it'll go on.
We've touched on the IDE. I realise the IDE is not a primary interest, but obviously we've got a new IDE president, Richard Dolman, one of your contemporaries in the Midlands. And one of the things that's standing out, I think, about Richard is the fact that he's pressing for greater transparency on things like accidents and near misses. Where do you stand on the subject of transparency and openness?
I fully support Richard on that. I would probably go a little bit further, because I think that it's important that we all learn from other people's unfortunate accidents. I won't say mistakes, but sometimes you do get accidents, and these things happen. I mean, I know that they say, if you talk to the HSE, they'll say that there's no such thing as an accident, but in my opinion, there is accidents that do occur. And I think, yes, we ought to be more transparent, and I think we all ought to be made aware of it so we can learn from other people's mistakes. I mean, don't get me wrong, anybody can have an accident, and there, for the grace of God, go any of us. And, you shouldn't be critical of somebody having an accident, because, it could happen to you tomorrow, because, you're only as good as the men on the site and the supervisor, and you hope that they follow the method statements and the risk assessments and everything. But humans are humans, and sometimes they lapse and have a little lapse and forget something, and that's usually, I believe, when you get an accident.
You've been a committed member of the NFDC for quite some time now. Why did you originally join, and what do you think it's done for your company?
I joined in 1984. And I was actually, those days, you used to go before an interview committee, and I actually went before David Hunt, who was the Honorary Life Vice President, Nottingham Contractors, who wasn't, he passed away now. But I was in front of him, and I joined because I could see that we needed to get ourselves more professional, and to get those days, John McGregor was the secretary. We had a secretary, national secretary, and to get the information that was coming through, and get updates on things. And to be honest with you, it was very, very good. I mean, I'm going back those days when some council list, etc., and local authorities and large developers wouldn't accept anybody unless they were in the NFDC. So going back to those days, if you wanted to carry on and do demolition, then you had to be in the NFDC. What do I think it's done for me? Or for us? I think it's done a lot with keeping us up to breast of latest regulations and the changes in the regulations and changes in the asbestos rules and regulations. And also, we have the audit scheme. It's done a lot to bring us to be a more credible part of the construction industry. And instead of, like, people think demolition people are there with a big ball and a sledgehammer, I think it's done a lot to portray us in a better light to the outside people looking in. And I think, it has done a lot for the demolition industry, especially with the National Demolition Training Group and the licenses and trying to get people more educated in safety, etc. I think it has done a lot for my company anyway.
Playing devil's advocate here, you mentioned about the dissemination of information, sort of legislation and that kind of thing. All of that's available on Google these days, and we're now in the age of Zoom meetings and online communication. So is a trade body like the NFDC actually relevant in these days?
Well, I think it is, because if you actually want to go, for instance, I don't know, if I see there's new regulations come through or whatever, I get an update from the NFDC straight away. So I've got somebody actually looking for me to give me the information. But unless you're a very, very big company, you won't have somebody, going getting all this information off the web, etc., all the time. Now, if you're a smallish business, you will get this information from the NFDC, and you can read the publications, and they've got publications on everything, and they do their own publications. You're well aware of the publications are put out for all various types of demolition. So yeah, I do think it's relevant, and I do think it needs probably bringing up to 2021. Things have changed a lot, and we need to probably now just sit back and change things to get them right up to date.
Any specific areas you think could do with some modernising?
I think that, well, there's things that we probably should be doing better by involving the members more, which I think is a very good thing. By literally having more seminars on different aspects of demolition. For instance, people doing different types of demolition and the problems they've had and the things they've done. I think we could literally share a lot more, especially now with all the the internet and Zoom meetings and team meetings and videos. And I mean, for instance, I look on your videos that you send, etc., and from all over the world, and there's a lot of information there. You think, well, that's interesting. And let's be honest with you, I've been at it for nearly 50 years, and I can honestly say you never stop learning. You're learning every single day of the year, and so somebody coming into the industry and passing all the exams and getting a degree or getting whatever. You're not. It's not the same as being on the ground, and you gain knowledge just by time and being at the business a long, long time.
We keep touching on the NFDC, and I'm going to go back to it again. You've held several key positions within the federation, regional level, and that kind of thing. That must take up a hell of a lot of your time.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that I've got a business where we've got, we've got people in house that can take up my time, and to be honest with you, I don't spend as much time with that as I used to. I do quite a lot of charitable work, but yes, I agree with you. It does take a lot up, and if we go back to the years when David Hunt was the president, and he said it actually ruined him because he took his eye off his business. And there's quite a few other ex-presidents that have bit the bullet. I believe that if you're a proprietor, you should only take the job on if you've got the resources to do it and the people to run your business. And to be quite honest with you, we've got plenty of people backing me up. And I don't get involved with absolutely everything day to day anymore, which gives me a lot more time to spend on doing the things I want to do and giving back to the industry what I want to give back.
I think depending who you ask, John, you're seen either as passionate or outspoken, or possibly a 50-50 split between the two. Given the fact that we are facing a very different demolition future, isn't that precisely the sort of thing that the Federation needs right about now?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I suppose I'm a little bit like Marmite. Some love me and some hate me, but I am passionate about the NFDC. I'm passionate that we're serving the members, and I have had many disruptions at council meetings or arguments and debates. And in fairness, I get on very well with David Keane. I think he was probably and is probably the best president we ever had. And I get on very well with him. He stepped into the breach when Unfortunately, we lost Paul Brown, and he did an excellent job. And to be quite honest with you, we've disagreed and begged to disagree on a number of things with the Federation, but we've debated it. And I think you need to debate these things and not just have an open mind. But I'm in the job long enough. I'm in the job long enough to know things that people who haven't been there very long don't. And also, it's not about doing just what you want. It's doing what is good for the members. And I have portrayed that since I've been sitting on National Council, probably, over a period. I've been there for 10 years, probably on and off National Council. But whenever I've been to National Council, I've done the best I can to represent fairly the Midlands and Welsh region. Now, standing for second vice, then I will devote the same energy to represent not just the Midlands and Welsh, but to represent every single region. For instance, Scotland. There's been unrest in Scotland. I think we need to get everybody singing off the same hymn sheet, and so that every member is treated the same. And if I'm elected, then it will be my strive to do what I can to achieve that.
It's funny, we should be talking about this at the moment. Obviously, we're coming out of lockdown fairly soon, so I do understand the need for people to get back together and, a community and a forum and that kind of thing. So I can understand the need for the NFDC and the IDE and other organisations. Everyone will have had a fairly tough 6, maybe 12 months, and they'll be looking at the bottom line. I think, the onus is on not just the NFDC and the IDE, but trade associations in general to show proper value to their members, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. And to be quite honest with you, I never before the lockdown last year bothered with Teams or Zoom or anything else. It was something that I'm not computer literate. I can work a computer to get what I want out of it. But I was never into that. And now a lot of our meetings are on Teams and Zoom. And I've noticed with the National Council that they've worked very, very well. And I do believe now and again you still need to have a meeting face to face, but I think a lot of the meetings can be done by Teams or Zoom, and there's a lot of benefit in doing that, because that then means that you've not got the cost of National Council members going down to London and getting a venue, paying for a meal for them, etc., etc. And I am. As far as I'm concerned, we need to make cuts to the members' fees. Now, I'm not very popular with that. I was the one who actually got them. I proposed £1,000 reduction in the subs, and we ended up then sorting out a £1,000 training voucher. But that was equally well received, and it was used. The £1,000 was used. Yes, I think we need to look more carefully about spending the members' funds, and that's one thing I will do, because I consider, if I'm in a position, that I'm a custodian of those funds, and I will not waste a bean. I'm not saying they have been wasted in the past. It's a matter of opinion, but I do believe that we need to be more frugal with the members' money. And that's how I've always been preaching, that we need to cut costs.
The standing for second vice, he's a lot like standing for a political position, and obviously people have their manifestos and the positions that they're standing on. If you could sum up in a sentence or two what John Lynch is standing on, what would that be?
I'm standing to represent every single member in the country from all the 5 regions, and I'm actually I'm standing to try and get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy that we have within the Federation, and I probably won't be popular saying that, but also to give every member value for money. Now, we've got a good team at the Surgeon House. We've got There's some really, really good people working from the Surgeon House, which are very, very competent. And, I don't mean that we need to be cutting back that sort of thing, but we can be cutting back on these meetings, and we can be cutting back on, for instance, when we have the AGM dinner, etc. We don't need to be spending fortunes on speakers, and we don't need to be spending giving a load of free £300 tickets away each. So, to be quite honest with you, it's just about being sensible and be a custodian of the members' funds. And if I'm elected and I end up then as eventually as president, I will be pushing to get these things done.
Everything NFDC wise is very, very London centric. The AGMs are there. Everything stems back to London. Yeah. Surely it's about time. I know they did their demo days and the road shows and everything else, but everything does seem to stem back. But Birmingham does have facilities for AGMs and things. Is that not a possibility for the future as well?
This was discussed. This thing about moving the National Council meetings around the country was actually discussed, and it was just quite favourably, but nothing ever got done about it. And I firmly believe that if you're having a National Council meeting, then Birmingham is one of the places you could have. You could actually go up and have one in Manchester, and then you could actually go up to Edinburgh or whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, you're asking them to travel down from Edinburgh, and I see the lads coming down from Glasgow. I see them coming down from Scotland, and they're up at sort of 4 o'clock in the morning to fly down, get off catch a train and get down on the plane, get a train, and then they've got to rush to get back, and they're sort of 4 o'clock in the morning and going home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And to be quite honest with you, for us it's quite easy. We jump on a train and it's an hour and 5 minutes if you get a fast train. And I totally agree. We should be actually moving around the country more, facilitating the regions. And to be quite honest with you, that's an idea that I think is should be done.
Yeah, it always strikes me that the Midlands are called the Midlands for a reason. Yeah. It's because it's roughly in the middle of the country. Even if it alternated with London, you just think it makes a whole lot more sense.
Well, I always said that when they knocked the Twin Towers down at Wembley, that I thought the National Stadium should go to Birmingham because it's the national stadium for the whole country, and Birmingham's got such great links. It's fantastic links, from the airports and the trains, and and there's all the facilities there with the NEC and everything. But I do believe that we should be actually moving around the country with more of these things. But with an AGM, I think you'd have to consider it very, very carefully because, with the amount of members from London going, I think an AGM would probably still work better in London because people like going to London for the weekend. I mean, I go down to London to the AGM, my wife comes with me, and then we spend the rest of the weekend in London and then see our family in London and then come home. So it's an idea, but I don't know if it'd actually work, to be honest, with an AGM. It would with other things. Definitely with the National Council meetings, we should be doing that. But I think going forward now, I think the National Council meetings will be a lot more Zoom or Teams meetings, and I would favour that because there's no travelling. You can if it's done properly, which they have been done, we've been doing them properly. It works out really, really well, and I think you obviously then probably twice a year need a National Council meeting or something like that. But I don't see how you need all National Council meetings in London. I can't see, firstly, the cost of it, and I can't see what it actually achieves that you can't achieve on a Zoom or Teams meeting. Just don't.
No, I mean it's an interesting one because it does sort of speak to this. You know, as a federation, I think the NFDC has made some big strides in making, you know, making people environmentally aware and that kind of thing. And yet, you know, it's perfectly acceptable to jump on a plane or a train from Edinburgh to be in London for a meeting that might only last a few hours. It doesn't seem to sort of follow the thing through.
If you'd have spoken to me 18 months ago, I'd have had a different opinion than I have now. But I totally agree with your sentiments there. I think it is the way forward, and I think a lot of these meetings could be held on remotely. And you know, we're all trying to save the environment, and there's a good argument for it on its own on that. And going back to the NFDC, yeah, we've been. I mean, if you look at, we're actually trying to, you know, recycle everything we can. And it's worked out not just good for the environment; it's good for the contractors because, you know, we're actually, you know, saving money ourselves as well. So the client, we can go in with keener prices, and the client's benefiting. We're benefiting. You haven't got as much road pollution, etc., taking all these materials to landfill. You haven't got all the problems with landfill and the taxes, etc. And I think, you know, I think the NFDC have really moved on the recycling, have probably excelled over a lot of other trades.